Chapter 8. The Lower Decks. The encrypted file needed Directorate clearance. Artemis didn't have it. Which meant the system had done its job, sealed, classified, buried. But systems, no matter how controlled, were still built on structure. And structure always had edges. So Artemis found another way. Lower Deck Sector 12 wasn't listed on any Academy map. It didn't appear in student routing paths. It didn't exist in standard navigation prompts. Even maintenance references avoided naming it directly, instead looping around it with indirect identifiers and rerouted pathways. It didn't need to be mapped. Students weren't supposed to go there. Which meant Artemis had already been there twice. And this would be the third. The descent alone felt different. They passed out of the clean, evenly lit corridors of the Academy sector and into older infrastructure, bulkhead doors with visible wear, exposed conduit lines running along the walls, occasional flickers in the overhead lighting that didn't immediately correct themselves. The deeper they went, the quieter it became. Not silent. Just less alive. The air changed too. Subtle, but noticeable. Heavier. Less filtered. A faint metallic edge that lingered at the back of the throat. This was the arc without polish. Without presentation. This was what existed beneath the systems that people trusted. And it showed. The corridor they entered stretched long and narrow, light spaced too far apart, leaving sections in dim shadow between illumination points. The walls bore signs of age, microfractures sealed over, plating that didn't quite match where replacements had been installed. Arc 34 was old. Older than most people liked to think about. And here. It felt it. Nova walked beside Artemis, her usual ease replaced with sharpened awareness. Her eyes moved constantly, tracking movement, exits, anything that didn't belong. "This is where things get interesting," she said quietly. Rian stayed close, closer than usual. "I don't like this place." "You don't have to," Nova replied without looking at him. "Just don't fall behind." Rian exhaled slowly. Reassuring. Artemis didn't respond. He was counting steps. Tracking turns. Matching the physical space to the fragmented data maps he had reconstructed from outdated maintenance schematics. Every movement was intentional. Every turn precise. Until he stopped. The corridor ended at a sealed door. No markings. No corp designation. No maintenance codes. Just reinforced alloy plating and a single access panel embedded beside it. Blank. Unresponsive. Invisible to anyone who didn't know what to look for. "This is it," Artemis said. Rian frowned, glancing between the door and Artemis. "What is it?" Artemis stepped closer to the panel, studying it. Unregistered data node. Nova raised an eyebrow. "You're telling me there's a hidden Directorate node down here?" Artemis shook his head. "Not Directorate." He placed his hand lightly against the panel, not activating it, just feeling it. Something older. Older than Directorate oversight. Older than the current system architecture. A remnant. Left behind. Forgotten, or deliberately abandoned. Which made it valuable. The panel flickered to life under his touch. Not fully. Just enough. A faint response. Recognition. Artemis input a short command string, nothing complex, just a handshake using deprecated system language. For a moment. Nothing. Then the door unlocked with a deep, mechanical click. Slowly, heavily, it began to open. The chamber beyond was dark. Not dim. Dark. Only faint residual lighting from inactive terminals gave shape to the space. Rows of consoles lined the walls, most powered down, their surfaces coated in a thin layer of disuse. Cables ran along the floor in bundled clusters, some disconnected, others still faintly humming with residual energy. The air inside was colder. Still. Untouched. Except. One console was active. A single station near the center of the room glowed softly, its interface alive, data moving across the screen. Someone was already there. The figure stood as the door finished opening. They turned slowly. A hooded coat obscured most of their form, dark, lead fabric that didn't match any standard academy or corp attire. Their face remained partially hidden beneath the hood, but their eyes. Sharp. Focused. Aware. You shouldn't be here, the figure said. Their voice was calm. Not surprised. Not alarmed. Just, certain. Nova shifted slightly forward, placing herself just ahead of Artemis without making it obvious. Neither should you, she replied. The figure's gaze moved between them. Assessing. Measuring. Then. It settled on Artemis. A beat of silence. Recognition. Your Golmir. Everything in Artemis went still. Not visibly. But internally. Locked. Focused. How do you know that? He asked. The figure tilted their head slightly, studying him like he was a problem already half solved. Because you're looking in places you shouldn't. Silence filled the space again. Not empty. Tense. Charged. Then the figure stepped aside slightly, gesturing toward the active console. I have something you're looking for. The terminal interface shifted as Artemis approached. Data reorganized. A file surfaced. At first glance, it looked identical to the one he had accessed in the Academy system. Same timestamp. Same sector. Same incident. Golmir, Elias. Golmir, Sarah. But this time. There was more. Additional layers. Unhidden. Unrestricted. A classification tag pulsed at the top of the file. Directive, Black Veil. Rian's voice dropped to a whisper. What is that? No one answered immediately. The words themselves felt heavy. Not just a classification. A designation. Something intentional. Something buried deep enough that even Directorate clearance might not fully expose it. Nova's eyes narrowed slightly, reading faster than she let on. That's not standard, she said quietly. No, Artemis replied. It isn't. The figure stepped back, creating space between themselves and the console. You didn't hear it from me, they said. Artemis didn't look away from the screen. Why are you helping me? The question hung in the air. For the first time, the figure hesitated. Just slightly. A shift in posture. A pause before answering. When they spoke, their voice was quieter. Less certain. Because your parents weren't the only ones. The words landed harder than anything else that had happened. Rian straightened, confusion cutting through his fear. What does that mean? Nova didn't speak. Didn't move. Her attention stayed locked on the figure. Artemis finally looked up from the screen. Met their gaze directly. Start talking. The figure exhaled slowly, as if deciding something. Then. They called them incidents, the figure said. System failures. Structural accidents. Containment breaches. Their eyes flicked briefly toward the inactive terminals lining the room. But they all had the same pattern. Artemis's focus sharpened. What pattern? The figure looked back at him. Wrong place. Wrong time. Officially. A pause. Then. Unofficially. Another pause. Longer this time. Exactly where they needed to be. The room felt colder. The hum of the arc, distant, constant, seemed to press in from all sides. Artemis turned back to the console. The file in front of him wasn't just a report anymore. It was a fracture. A break in the system's version of the truth. Directive, Black Veil. A hidden classification. Multiple incidents. Multiple victims. His parents. Not an accident. Part of something larger. Something controlled. Something deliberate. Artemis's hands rested lightly on the console. Still. Steady. But his mind was already moving. Connecting. Reconstructing. Planning. Nova stepped up beside him. Quiet. Focused. Rian stayed just behind them, his unease now replaced with something else. Realization. This isn't just about you anymore, Nova said. Artemis didn't answer. Because she was right. And that made it worse. He looked at the classification tag one more time. Black Veil. Then at the figure. You're going to tell me everything you know, Artemis said. Not a question. A statement. The figure held his gaze. Then gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Because some systems hid the truth. And others buried it. And Artemis Golmir had just found the place where it was kept. This ends Chapter 8 of Artemis Book 1, Unevaluated. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe for more.